Hey guys, welcome to season 2. This is episode 1 of season 2, and within this episode, what we wanted to talk about is, if you're a roaster, when do I start thinking about importing my own green coffee? And when is the best time to work with a local importer? And as previously mentioned in previous episodes, we just wanted to share our experience and knowledge and mistakes with you, so you can take that into consideration and not to do the same mistakes that we've done. We hope that, through all the experience that we've accumulated over the years, you can take some of the things that we're going to discuss within these episodes, and you're going to understand them and basically create a scenario that is good for you. As mentioned previously, we continue to operate, we continue to do mistakes, and we continue to learn. And what we're going to share with you today is what we've learned over the years. And hopefully you can take that into consideration and, adapt it according to your own business. You have to identify your growth potential. You have to understand, you need to have a plan for your business. For example, if you're a business that is basically roasting coffee and you do supply to your own cafes, let's say you have 2 cafes, you might have a plan to expand your business into 10 cafes instead of 2 cafes. That means most of the resources, inclusive of capital, money, basically, needs to go towards growing that business. And most resources in our life, they're limited, except, in certain circumstances, if you have deep pockets, then it's a different situation when it comes to capital, because, resources can differ between, labor, machinery, capital. You have to take all of these type of things into consideration, and efforts and time. Remember, everything revolves around time. Time is the only resource that we can't really get back. We have to keep that into consideration. We have, as an entrepreneur, you have to keep that in mind, that your time is limited, and what you do within this time is very important for the growth of your business. So going back to that point, let's say you have 2 cafes and you have limited amount of money for these cafes. What needs to be done is that you have a specific amount of money. That money can go either to growing your business, growing your cafe business, or that money is going to go into purchasing green coffee. What you have to keep in mind is that if you purchase the green coffee from origin, go back to origin and purchase it instead of buying it from a local importer, that means you're locking your cash for a period of time. That cash is basically going to be utilized to pay for the lots of coffee that you're going to purchase. And that cash is going to be stuck from the time you pay until the coffee arrives to your warehouse facilities, and until you start selling this coffee in order to get your money back plus the profit margin. That whole cycle can vary between 5 months to a year. Now the question is you need to answer is, am I willing to lock my cash and take the risk of locking my cash between 6 months up to a year, or I would rather buy from a local importer, pay 20, 30, 40% higher, yet I buy the amounts that I'm going to require for now. Furthermore, utilize the cash that I have to expand my revenue stream instead of reducing my costs when I buy from origin straight rather than buy from the local importer. And this is a point that we've noticed a lot of people don't take into consideration. Remember, it's it's not about, in certain circumstances, it's not about, obviously you're going to save if you buy from origin, but in a lot of, depending on the volumes as well that you buy and how much cash you're willing to lock in, instead of utilizing it to generate more revenue, buy more machinery, create coffee carts, hire more staff, get into different type of products that you can utilize to sell in your cafes. All of these type of items can generate more revenue for you, instead of taking that money and utilizing it to buy coffee from origin. What we've noticed in a lot of cases is that people just look at the cost of the item and think that's the only cost that they have to take into consideration when they're calculating buying from origin. And there is a love story attached to it that, that each roaster is going and buying the coffee from origin. Realistically speaking, what you need to take into consideration is what I've mentioned previously. There's the risk of your capital money being stuck, the utilization of your capital. What is the best way to utilize my capital in order to generate more return for the business from a financial perspective? That's what you need to take into consideration. And a lot of situations, we've noticed that in a lot of businesses, I've noticed that a lot of people, it's important to keep costs at bay, to manage your costs. But sometimes you focus so much on costs and forget the revenue potential. Remember, it's about effort and time. The effort that you place sometimes in reducing your cost by 10%, you might be much better off putting that effort of the team and your effort and the resources in avenues that can generate more revenue for you. Because when you open up avenues of revenue, you will get to a place from a scale perspective that you can go back and start buying from origin, because your volumes start making sense. You're benefiting from economies of scale. Another point that I would like to mention is the risk of profiles. You have to understand that when you buy from origin, in a lot of situations, the coffee arrives not exactly from a profile, from a flavor and an aroma and a fragrance perspective. It might not arrive as you approved. And that's a risk that the importer, your local importer, is taking into consideration. Remember, when you buy from your local importer, your money is not stuck. You're directly buying and directly basically plugging in the inventory you bought into your production line so you can start generating revenue. Furthermore, what you're benefiting from is that you are canceling out the profile change risk. That's something that's super important that you have to take into consideration. The idea, within this episode, we're just mentioning these points because in a lot of cases, people forget about these points. And they think about just, if I go buy from origin, I pay per kilo or per pound, X minus 3. But if I get it here, that 30% extra I'm going to have to, it will be a saving for me. But you forget about risk of profile, you forget about storage fees, you forget about logistics. When it comes to logistics and handling the logistics and getting the products in and handling the paperwork and the risk of not getting the paperwork correctly, all of these type of things you have to take into consideration. It's important maybe at a certain stage of your time that you would like to start buying certain coffees from origin. But the most important thing that you have to take into consideration is your cash flow situation. Cash flow. Understand that for a business, your cash position is super important. You don't want to lock in your money for a long period of time. If your plan is to expand the business revenues and generate more revenue for the business, that cash can be utilized there instead of you putting it in the green coffee. Look, this is a subject that, we can debate it for a long period of time and we can discuss various things. We've been through experiences where we've paid to producers and the producers, fail to deliver and our money is stuck and we have to go through legal cases. We've had experiences at which, we score the coffee a specific score and the profiles of that coffee where we approved with where what we wanted, but the coffee arrives and it's totally different than what we wanted. It's a risk that we are getting into, and we've learned in certain circumstances that there's a price to be paid when you take that risk. You don't want to take that risk when your cash position within the company is very thin, meaning you don't want to go and do these risks. These challenges are gonna come up when you start importing from origin, and that's not one. We've heard of stories of that. It happened to us. Didn't happen to us, but we've happened to hear about contamination in terms of container. You order a coffee and the container comes, and unfortunately there was something stored within the container that contaminated the coffee. We've had ourselves experiences at which the container was 6 months delayed until it arrived to us. We were, that means your money is basically stuck for 6 months only on the ship. Now think about it this way. Container arrives after 6 months, you're storing it, and then you're worried of loss of profile because it's traveled for 6 months around the world, and it arrives and you're worried that the coffee is not going to taste as good as you bought it, as you approved. And then remember something, that container is going to take around 3 to 6 months to be sold and then to be paid. So you have to take all of these things into consideration. I hope what I mentioned, the limited, because our time is limited, I hope that what I've mentioned now is helpful for you. I hope that you take these things into consideration when you decide into getting, start importing your own coffee from origin. We will talk about other experiences eventually with more episodes, and the more experiences we face, the more we'll share with you guys. Hope you enjoyed it. And if you have any questions, please leave them on the page and we'll try to get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you so much. Appreciate your support and all the love.